Hi everyone, thanks for having me this afternoon. Um, some of the themes within this approach were very similar to Jav's. I think where it potentially might be slightly different is that before we even got to the stage of the campaign, we did a ton load of pre-work. And that was primarily because we didn't actually have a budget in the first instance. We had to build a business case to convince senior leaders to invest in some marketing that would give them a return on their investment. The context of Stoke-on-Trent at the time was we had become inadequate. It was proving quite difficult to recruit people to come and work for Stoke-on-Trent. And there was a very distinct change in approach around looking towards good and improvement for the organisation. So it was against that backdrop. We very much set out to, similar to Jav, target support workers, social workers, children's services employees that would come and stay with Stoke-on-Trent. So it was very much focused on trying to get permanent members of staff, but also to replace a lot of experienced staff who'd come up for retirement, and also to cope with the increasing numbers of children in care. So it was very much around succession planning and trying to work to evaluate our end-to-end processes. So by that I mean what happened if someone made an inquiry about working for us as a council through children's services, and I'll talk a little bit about that later. But as it says there, it was very much a values-driven campaign, so focused on why working for Stoke-on-Trent. We didn't have a salary differential. We're located next to two probably fair to say richer local authorities. We were a unitary against a backdrop of county councils who did have more salary benefits than they did at Stoke-on-Trent. So it was very much around why Stoke-on-Trent, why would you want to come and work here, particularly as we were inadequate. If you wouldn't mind moving to the next slide, please, James. So the creative approach, it evolved. Stoke-on-Trent, if you might not be aware, was very much focused on place shaping, and as part of our USP, it's about pottery and clay, and we'd originally gone with moulding, but then when we did some user testing, mould equated quite a lot of negative connotations. So whilst we in the pottery landscape didn't see that, a lot of others did, and particularly as we were trying to attract those from other areas, we needed to listen to that market testing, and so it moved to shape Stoke's future. The other element of that was people had told us that they really wanted to have opportunities that they might not be able to in other organisations, and we were very clear that anyone who we employed was empowered to be able to shape and influence the future of Stoke-on-Trent and our journey towards good. We looked at focusing on something that allowed us and enabled us to be diverse, but also that was very, very different in what was a very crowded marketplace. The other thing at the time was when we did our market research, there was a lot of campaign and marketing activity that was very serious, very drab, very grey. And this was intended to have cut through in that really busy marketplace. We also worked with regional organisations to ensure that the insight that was already in place informed our approach. And key to this was around the applications process, as Jav mentioned. We had found that actually we had a lot of abandoned applications. We also had, I think we discovered that 140 people had made contact and no one had got back to them. So I think it, aligned very much to our journey towards good and what could we do overall. So the marketing was the end element of that, but we looked at the process and the experience right the way through for anyone who potentially wanted to work for Stoke-on-Trent and made that leap of faith to contact us. So we made every contact count, really. And similarly, it took a lot of work, but across the microsite, we managed to get live job ads. Our normal recruitment site was very, very corporate. You had to search through hundreds of vacancies to even find the children's vacancies. We had long debates about what the roles should be called and what people would actually look for, because they were very historic around the roles and what they were called at Stoke-on-Trent. So we left no stone unturned, really. Whilst there was a microsite, we looked at how it would appeal to staff. We very much wanted to focus on the benefits overall, and we wanted to get across that senior leadership support. So there were videos from our portfolio leads on there. Our leader was very much around why Stoke-on-Trent and why would you want to come and live there. So housing prices at the time in Stoke-on-Trent were very affordable. So we did the full package approach, and Alive really helped us with that. Did you want to just show that animation, James, if that's okay?
I'm Jake Finney. I'm a social worker in safeguarding and child protection. There was a teenager who had been through significant domestic abuse. A lot of people said, you can take over this case now, but there is very little that you can do. She will never meet with you without the perpetrator being there. And it took a lot of work to build a relationship with her so that she could trust in me, and eventually, after a period of months, was able to disclose everything that was happening with this partner. And then I did a lot of work with her to build a relationship between her and her family, so that when she was able to finally realise the position that she was in and how much abuse she was being subjected to, she had a place of safety.
So that just gives you an idea there. Jake was one of our social workers, and we found that a lot of our social workers wanted to be involved, but they didn't necessarily want to front the campaign visually. So we worked with Alive to make that happen. And whilst that was a real heart-wrenching story there, it actually really had appeal around the difference that someone working in Stoke-on-Trent could make to children. We had a lot of really positive feedback about the videos and the content that we used, and because it was multi-channel, we involved partners within that, police, fire, hospitals. It just meant that our reach was significantly improved, but it also generated a sense of pride from our own social workers, who really felt that it was something positive that they could get behind, particularly against the backdrop of requires improvement and that drive towards good. So the results, I think you can see there, speak for themselves. We managed to successfully place 28 people, and it was a challenge, it was a battle. We had to look at every single part of the campaign. We had to ensure that people had the follow-up. We were speaking to people who put in applications, but then didn't want to take it further to understand more. We used insight at every step. But I think, the saving of 1.5 million there annually, again, spoke for itself. I had to convince senior leaders to put up the money for the marketing campaign, and we had to report on it every fortnight to the senior leadership team. So it didn't go without scrutiny, but it it worked, and it really helped because there hadn't been an Invest to Save programme previously at Stoke-on-Trent, but it very much became a basis for many of our campaigns moving forward. So yeah, I think for all of you, it's not an easy thing. It's in a backdrop of very challenging landscape, but it's hugely worth it. And the USP of your own organisation and your own workers just goes a really, really long way.